you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this to order this virtual special meeting of the Planning Commission today, February 17th, 2022 at 2 p.m. and ask the secretary to please call the roll. Julie? She is muted. Hello, Julie? Can you unmute her, Max? Okay, Julie Davis? Julie Davis?
Yes.
Can you please call the roll?
I would be happy to call the roll. Commissioner Covington?
Barry is muted as well.
Well, a pass for the
And
moment.
underneath the, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I am here. I'm here by phone. We are going under, we'll be going underneath the Chesapeake Bay Bridge tunnel, and I might get disconnected, so I just want to warn you of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Dewey?
Here.
Commissioner Ellison?
Here.
Commissioner Hunter?
Here.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Here.
Commissioner Macha?
Here.
I know Commissioner Strange is not here for health reasons. Commissioner Davis is obviously present. Commissioner Chair Bryan?
Here, present. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. There is a quorum. The purpose of today's meeting is simply to receive public comment on the draft comprehensive development plan, which we refer to as the CDP. Again, is to receive public comment. We have with us today the city planner, Tom West, and the consultant, Lauren Good with Wallace Montgomery. And I see that both are online here with us. And so what I'd like to do is to first call on Lauren Good and ask her to introduce herself and give a brief overview of her work, her background, and I may ask her from time to time for some different bullet points of where we are on the CDP. So Lauren, if you could step forward and take over at that point.
Great. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be back before you, the Planning Commission, and the public today. My name is Lauren Good, and I am a project manager with Wallace Montgomery, the consulting firm that has been helping the city to develop and finalize the CDP over the last several months. Mike asked to give a little bit on my background. I have undergraduate and graduate degrees in community planning and received professional certification from the American Institute of Certified Planners back in 2009. I started my professional planning career about 2 years before that, and I've worked in a few other states before coming back to Delaware, which is where I grew up. My career has been entirely focused on the public sector, having worked for both town and county governments before coming to the consultant side, where I work solely with different government agencies in the Mid-Atlantic area. Much of that work has been for communities in Delaware, as well as Maryland's Eastern Shore. And in those locations, I've worked on numerous comprehensive plans for communities of all sizes, rural, urban, and in many varied locations. To give a little bit of background on the project itself, the city initially contracted with a different consulting firm, KCI Technologies, to develop the CDP update. I actually worked for KCI prior to joining Wallace Montgomery, and actually helped to develop the original scope for the city's CDP update and works on some initial data collection efforts before I left them. KCI continued to work on the project until the fall of last year when their project manager relocated to Arizona. So with my previous background on the project, the city asked me to provide them with a scope to take the project from that draft stage through to the adoption later this year. As part of that transition, I had several conversations with the former project manager, and they provided us with a bunch of information, including mapping, correspondence, annual reports, interview summaries conducted by the Planning Commission of different city committees and organizations, the results of the community, business, and visitor surveys that were developed earlier on in the process, review of the 2010 plan's goals and priority actions, information from the previously held meetings, including presentations and other related documents, some census and seasonal population information, photos, and initial chapters that were at varying states of completion. So we used all of that information that they provided to us to update and refine the various chapters as we reviewed and developed the first draft that we submitted to the Planning Commission for their review in the October timeframe. We did utilize most of the information that was provided. Some of it was reworded or reworked to better suit the drafts that we were working on. And some of the other information that was more filler was discarded because it didn't really add a whole lot to the substantive discussion of the drafts. But just to touch briefly on the various outreach efforts related to the project, beginning in, I believe it was summer of 2018, KCI started conducting numerous project meetings. I believe there were at least 20, if I'm not mistaken. Those ranged from internal meetings with city staff to joint meetings with the Board of Commissioners and Planning Commission, as well as dedicated meetings with the Planning Commission and meetings with state agencies, for example. These ranged everywhere from a kickoff meeting to an overview of initial data collection efforts, a review of the information obtained from the various surveys that were conducted, discussions of the goals, and then different meetings to discuss particular topics or provide project updates. Unfortunately, when the COVID pandemic started many months ago, there were some additional anticipated in-person community meetings that had to be canceled due to social distancing limitations and public safety concerns. But since we began work on this project in late last year, we've participated in numerous meetings with the Planning Commission and joint meetings between the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners, as well as coordination calls with the city. Since that time, we have developed 5 drafts of the CDP, so we're on draft number 5 right now. That's the one that we have submitted to the state for their review and is currently available on the city's website. Each draft revision incorporated comments that we received, whether those were from the Planning Commission, Board of Commissioners, or the public once it was released more fully to the public at large. So there have been quite a few changes to the draft since the original 2010 CDP was adopted, including an overall update to the layout and format, updating the statistics that were included to reflect more current information, pulling information from some relevant state and county planning documents, and updated maps reflecting current information, We confirmed desired land use classifications and potential annexation areas. Those are reflected in the maps that are in the draft right now. Added a future land use map that hadn't previously been present, and that aims to help with some ongoing decisions related to zoning requests, promoting various items, or just to help with general organization in the future. We also incorporated and reflected the numerous responses from the 3 surveys, as well as input from many commission, committee, or organization interviews that had been conducted. During this period, we worked with the Planning Commission to review and expand on all of the visions and goals that are included in the draft, and also developed some concise city positions for a variety of items that are required by the state under state law. The current draft touches on information on projects that have been completed since the last plan was adopted, and provides a little bit more information on the city's various departments, boards and commissions, and committees. The draft also reflects any laws or policies, relevant ones that have been enacted since that 2010 adoption. These include those at federal, state, and local levels. We also expanded on a discussion of the review and possible development of a mixed-use zone within existing commercial districts, incorporated some extended descriptions of city neighborhoods and architectural forms, and incorporated information on climate change and related sea level rise, greenhouse gas, air quality, and electric vehicles. And then just to round that out, we took a look at the strategies that had been identified in the 2010 plan, identifying those that hadn't yet been completed, and seeing if they were still relevant to include. And then we added some new strategies to build on the city's many accomplishments and address some new concerns that have arisen. So a lot of work was done in a very short period of time. And we're not done yet. So at this point in the update process, we've circulated the draft for public review and comment, which is still ongoing, which is why we're here today. But aside from circulating that to the general public, it's been sent to state agencies through their what's called the Plus Review, where numerous state agencies will take a look at the draft and provide comments to us. We've also circulated it to Sussex County, as well as some neighboring jurisdictions for their review and comment. Our Plus Review meeting is scheduled to take place next week, and we'll be getting official comments back from that later in March. As mentioned, we're also expecting to receive some additional comments from the county, as well as from Henlopen Acres, Dewey Beach, and Lewis in the coming weeks. Next steps for the project is we'll be working to schedule a date for the Planning Commission's public hearing, which is a state requirement. And then after that hearing, all of the comments heard then and all of the ones that we've collected since the draft number 5 was released will be compiled, and we'll make some initial recommendations for the Planning Commission to consider. They'll provide us with direction on how specifically to incorporate those recommendations or address those comments. And then the Planning Commission will forward a revised draft to the Board of Commissioners as the draft that it is recommending for adoption. That draft will end up being introduced to the Board of Commissioners along with an adoption ordinance. They'll get a chance to review the document and hold their own public hearing because it is an ordinance to adopt the plan. And we're still working to identify the specific number of meetings that will take place over this time period, as well as their dates and times. So that is still pending, but we'll provide that information to everyone once it's determined. But our goal is to have the plan completely adopted and sent to the governor for certification no later than July of this year to meet with state deadlines. So with that, I will turn it back over for any questions, or if Mr. West, the city planner, wants to provide some additional information or comments.
Just briefly, Lauren, this matter was put out, I believe, in late December, around December 21st or so, for public comment, written public comment. And I've been advised throughout the process that you have received public comment in writing, which you have studied and reported back to the Planning Commission about. Is that correct?
That's correct. We received over 400 separate comments from the Public Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners. Those comments were addressed in draft number 5, but the specifics of the comments that came in, as well as how they were addressed, are available in documentation that's on the city's website. We haven't received quite that many comments since draft number 5 has been released, but we'll continue collecting them throughout the next period until the public hearing.
And the public comment in writing by the public continues throughout the process. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. West.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just share some observations as the city planner, just some clarifications too on my role. So as the city planner, I've been here since August. Primary duties were initially to assist the Planning Commission and the city with development reviews, but obviously with the CDP update going on, I was asked to participate in that to assist the consultant and the Planning Commission in preparing their draft and preparing for the review process moving forward. Similar to Lauren, I'm a certified planner. I worked in planning, developing comprehensive plans, CDPs. In my role as a county planner, I think I did about a dozen, probably reviewed 3 dozen of them as the Planning Commission reviewer for the county in Chester County. So I've been involved in a number of these projects and implementing them. Most recently with the city of Lewis, I was involved at the end of that project, similar to Rehoboth, which was adopted in 2017. I was involved in working through the zoning with the city through 2019. And we're still working on updates to the subdivision land development ordinance. In fact, we had a public hearing last week on that. So one of my roles as the city planner is to work with the Planning Commission and the consultant, looking at the implementation strategies like zoning. Lauren mentioned there's a future land use map and zoning strategies in the plan. So that was some areas that I was focused on and working with the group as it moved forward with its consideration. I've reviewed a lot of the material since 2018 that's been put out there, is available, and the public can look at it too on the project, a lot of it on the project website, which includes a lot of the presentations over that course of time to the Planning Commission, the interview reports, and also the survey summaries, which are really important input into this process. And were talked about quite a bit throughout the process, right up through January meetings. I was involved in all of the review of the drafts with KCI, the original consultant, in September, and then with Wallace Montgomery draft 1, 2, 3, and 4, along with the Planning Commission, reviewing those, providing comments, and attending the workshops, including the joint workshop with the Board of Commissioners. So some of the observations just on comprehensive plans, just to share. Again, I've worked most recently in Delaware and going through the PLUS review process with Lewis. I've worked on a number of review processes with PLUS. Lauren outlined a lot of those steps, and I think it's important to understand that the city does need to meet the requirements that the state lays out. There's a set of things a list that you have to check off. We've been looking at that throughout, and that's important, but it's also important to have a CDP that meets the city's needs. That's really important. The biggest role of a comprehensive planner is really it is the document that sets the foundation for the city. And it's really important from a planning standpoint, city leader standpoint, city staff to have a document that has a set of clear policies that can be used. It's really not an inventory. It's not a document that talks about what's on the ground or has happened, except in context. It's providing context. Its main goal is to look to the future and to set the policies for zoning decisions that come, budget decisions, building permit decisions. I would say that I was pleased to see throughout this expedited review of the last 3 or 4 months with the Planning Commission, with a new consultant, with some new Planning Commission members, just the attention that was paid to the policies. So if you look in the document, there's vision statements, positions, and goals. I would say that a lot of discussions were there about different perspectives and different points of view with that. But it was really helpful to see good collaborative discussions and coming together so that the recognition that the policy needs to be uniform and carried forward is in that document. I'm sure there's still going to be discussions about them as it moves forward to final review, but that is a big piece, and I'm pleased to see a lot of attention that went into that document in the last few months that we've been involved with it. Lauren mentioned that there was really a lot of reorganizing entire sections. There was a big focus on making it clear, easy to read. Data and information is important, but sometimes it needs to be channeled so that you're really highlighting the important aspects or issues that need to be addressed. If someone's coming to your CDP and looking for it, they shouldn't be looking through a 200-page document to find something that's really prominent. And I'm glad to see that there was a lot of attention to that as it moved forward. And then there was the other parts that I think were really important to have attention and discussion on. Lauren talked about a few of them, but defining neighborhood character and conditions and experiences. The plan already had a lot of that. The 2010 plan had a lot of it. The 2020 plan, there were discussions about refining those, updating them. Things are different 10 years later. And then how do we treat them 10 years from now? So that was, I think, really helpful to see a good amount of information and attention paid to that. Another big topic was redevelopment. So in 2010, the CDP redevelopment was big, but a lot of things that were in there have been done. City Hall, Rehoboth Avenue. There's new redevelopment issues and challenges and opportunities for the city. And the draft CDP talks about a lot of that. It sets policies and sets direction for it. There was a lot of good discussions in the meetings about the importance of it. And then the challenges and opportunities with redevelopment, which goes back to the neighborhoods and the transition areas. Though the CDP, I think, is setting a good foundation for whatever comes with zoning and decisions moving forward, because it's a big issue with the city. Land development strategies. Lauren talked about zoning and future land use. I won't go into that in too much detail, but it is good that it now has a future land use map in the CDP, because when you do a zoning change request, it's important to have that to say, what are the policies starting off with? Another key part is demographics. Some areas it's relatively easy to do population projections and housing projections. In an area with seasonal changes as much as Rehoboth and a lot of the Delaware Beach communities, it's a much bigger challenge because you have the primary season, the shoulder seasons. It's an issue of how many people are residing in the city, how many people have second homes, but also visitors that are coming there. And that was another big part. And I think a beneficial part of the CDP is to understand that there are those different types of constituents, the residents, the business community, and the visitors. And each one, when you look at decisions and policies, they need to be in that framework, which is really, I think, addressed well in the CDP. obviously the significance of natural resources. Rehoboth, it's such a big issue with the city of not taking them for granted and making sure that they're being looked after and future policies for that. And then the last big thing is mobility and impacts. And I can't go into too much detail, but how do people get around? How do pedestrians move around? Bicyclists? Again, something that was big in the 2010 CDP, but things have changed. Parking is always a big issue. And I think that you can't get into the solutions, the specific solutions in a CDP, but you can set the policies. And I think that was well addressed in the current draft. And I think that's all I'd like to share at this point. But like Lauren said, I'm available for discussions and look forward to working with the group and the public moving forward on this important document.
Thank you, Tom. Ms. Womack, would you please give us verification of the meeting notice? I know I moved that around on the agenda each meeting, and I apologize for that.
The agenda was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on February 10th and was amended and reposted on February 16th. That's all I have, Chair.
But now we also received some correspondence, did we not? I note on the agenda
Yes.
from Gary Klasik, an email and correspondence from Jim and Edie Herron.
Yes.
Anything else?
I have not received anything further.
And those two were attached to and made a part of the agenda, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, well, it's time for our public comment. We have, how many people signed up, Ms. Womack?
I believe it's 3.
Okay, you want to give me some names?
Jeffrey Trunzo, Win Achenbaum, Joyce Lucier.
All right. What we will do, I'm asking the Vice Chair, Nan Hunter, to be the timekeeper, and we have I think have more time available than usual for this. So, Ms. Vice Chair, I guess let's have a 5-minute limit and ask the speaker to be brief and succinct and comply with that. And if you will gently remind them if they wander off, please.
All right, I will. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Lucier, are you available?
But can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Okay. I'm a former member of the Planning Commission, and I was a member when the 2020 CDP was first addressed. This was in 2018-19, and the questionnaires were sent to residents, businesses, visitors. The data was collected, collated, and distributed to the PC members. We did get all of that data. From what I have seen, the data is fully accounted for in the current CDP draft that I've read. I didn't see anything missing. And I know there have been accusations or complaints, whatever the word is, in the Gazette, but I didn't see anything specific, so I wasn't sure what was being referred to. But I felt that that this current draft really reflected what the work that was done when I was there and the overall vision and direction. I left the Planning Commission in February of 2021, and until that date, we were not permitted, or there was not available, I don't know, to see one page of the CDP draft. We just saw the raw data. I asked, and this can be verified on the commission's recordings, I asked to see what had been written and was told that the chair had seen the document, but because of mapping issues, our consultant, Debbie Fail at that time, did not want to distribute any text because the page numbers would need to be changed. I asked at that point if we could see those sections that had nothing to do with mapping, and therefore there would be, we didn't even need page numbers on them, but that was refused. To my knowledge, by the time I left the commission in February, nothing had been passed out to the Planning Commission members. So I would really like to commend the current Planning Commission for the extraordinary work they've done and the extensive time they've spent since October to fully develop this new CDP, because, as was just stated, this is vital to our city and to the running of the city and to decisions that are made, and it reflects all of our values. So that's the reason I'm here, is simply as a thank you for all the work that's been done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. It's good to hear your voice again, and it's good to hear from you. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
Wynn Oschenbaum, please.
I'm Wynn Achenbaum at 62 Columbia Avenue. I want to express my admiration for the job done on the CDP leading up to Draft 5, given the circumstances and time constraints. The Planning Commission and Lauren have done a solid job. I have lots of nits, a number of edits I'll suggest in writing, many in the nature of copy editing and trying to pull back to look at how this report will be used in the next decade. Despite good intentions, I was unable to devote the time earlier in the process due to a family health crisis. And the document is sufficiently long that it is sometimes difficult to see the bigger picture. Among my suggestions are that some material that is descriptive rather than prescriptive be moved to the appendix. The current draft at 266 pages is only a little shorter than the Sussex plan's 285. Our 2010 CDP came in at 123 pages, and the body of this one right now is 206. I've watched the PC meetings, discussions, and been impressed with the due diligence, with the attention to nuance and detail evident in the written comments and the discussions, with the collegiality of the 9 members, and the smoothness with which the meetings have been run. I'd like to suggest for the future that when surveys are created, they be reviewed by someone skilled in survey design, and further, that the distinction between the residents and visitors be more clearly delineated. For example, by providing a definition of resident and creating a separate survey for the larger 19971 and 19958 Lewis community, which totals about 38,000 people. From a thorough reading of the verbatims in the residents survey, it becomes clear that many people who responded to that survey live beyond the boundaries of our city. They perceive themselves as city residents and were likely drawn to the area by the charms of our city, but they chose to live elsewhere. That means that, unlike the residents within the city, they need not live with all the consequences of the preferences they express. They get the upside and avoid the downside. Things they want don't necessarily belong within city limits, given the constraints of our 1 square mile size and our island situation, with just 3 access and exit points. The last few years have given me an appreciation for the importance of the CDP and the ways it can be used to support things that are out of keeping with many of its own provisions. I started to see this when specific 2018 survey findings were used to justify overlooking clear statements in the 2010 CDP and wise provisions of our zoning code. And that's why I've put as much time into reviewing this 2020 CDP draft as I have. I'll send in my detailed comments, and I'm glad to hear from Mike and from Lauren that the process remains in place to consider them in the final version. I suspect many of us will be referring to the finished product often over the coming decade. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And here's another veteran of the Planning Commission, Jeff Trunzo. Or did we? No, there, Jeff. He's muted at this point. Max, can you?
Let me try one more time. How about now?
Very good.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate this time to talk to the Planning Commission, and it's wonderful to hear all these familiar voices. I have to tell you that I really miss living in Rehoboth Beach. With 6 months perspective, it's been a difficult separation. So I want to basically say the same thing that the previous speakers said, that I really want to congratulate the PC for the work you have done on this CDP. I mean, it's just, you did it at warp speed. You know, I also want to thank the city manager, the city staff, the mayor and the board of commissioners, and everyone else who provided resources for the PC. You know, we had issues with resourcing, and since adding a city planner, a new consultant, and a dedicated attorney, I mean, I think the Planning Commission is flying. I've been able to watch a few segments of the meetings, and it's just super impressive. So I also want to express my gratitude to previous PC chairs for their high standards of performance and their mentorship. Rick Perry and David Mellon did a lot of work through difficult circumstances, and they were very generous with me and with other members of the PC with their historic perspectives and their mentoring advice. I also want to acknowledge the super effort of Mike Bryan as PC chair. Mike was just an invaluable vice chair, always reliable, always a steady hand, valued advisor, and a good listener. And I'm just so happy that the PC is thriving under his leadership. I only want to comment on one part of the CDP, and that's chapter 3. The section, particularly 321, city boards and commissions. I like the words that are there now, especially when we get to the summary goals. And goal number 10 is increase coordination, communications, and input between and among city commissions, boards, and committees. I find that this is critical for an organization of any size, but with such a small city and the finite number of folks that are involved, I think coordination is absolutely key, and I'm very happy to see that as a goal. Further, the action item K says, seek to ensure projects that involve multiple committees' input and participation are coordinated with collective support for inclusivity. Again, I think the statement is correct. What I really suggest folks do is concentrate on reducing friction. And by reducing friction, I mean make the city code and the building inspector's office and the planning commission and the board of adjustments, let's get friction out of those relationships, because I think there's a lot to be gained in terms of how the city operates and what it looks like over the decades. I'll mention two things that I think are really necessary to do operationally. And one is to have a citywide ethics program for everybody who's involved on any committee or any commission. And I think it should be better. I think it should be better defined. It should have better resource material, and it should be a requirement for being appointed that folks understand and agree to follow that before they join. The other thing I think is that conflicts of interest may not always be adequately disclosed or discussed or evaluated, again, for the reason of I don't think enough attention has been spent to really get everybody on an equal playing field, to understanding what conflicts of interest may be, and if so, what needs to be done to address those. I think those will go a long way to restoring the public's faith and trust in the city, hopefully maybe break down some of the divisions that sometimes occur and the mistrust. And I just think it would make, I think it would make a lot of the things that I was involved in kind of behind the scenes maybe not happen again, or is just easier to deal with or hopefully prevent. So that's really all I have to offer today. Congratulations on being on draft 5, and a big celebration is coming in a few months when this is done this summer, or maybe even a little bit before. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Womack, I believe that concludes the list of speakers. Is that correct?
You are correct.
All right, I think we've concluded the receipt of public comment today, and we will be adjusting and setting meetings, whether regular or special or whatnot, in response to what happens at the Plus review. We have a hearing, I believe, Lauren, next 23rd at 10:30 a.m., which is and call-in is available for listening by the public. And then subsequent to that date, we expect to have the written response of the Plus committee by the week of March 21st. And so we need things will continue to happen in that interim period. We'll need to respond to what Plus says. We'll need to respond not only to what they say at the meeting next week, but at the written comments that come toward the end of March. We'll continue to receive opinions and reviews from adjacent communities, the county, Dewey Beach. I think Dewey's already made some type of a presentation or submission, but we'll get those involved and have to respond to those. So where I'm headed with this is, I think we still will have more work to do on the CDP itself to address whatever issues come between now and the time that we actually, hopefully in April, that's an optimistic guess, but that we are able to make a recommendation as to a final CDP to forward it to the mayor and board of commissioners, who then will make the final decision on the adoption of the CDP. So I just wanted to let everybody, particularly the public, know that it's an ongoing process. Look forward to more public comments. Ms. Achenbaum talked about it today, and that's a great thing. And so I'll be on your email soon, asking you to spend more time to work on this project. You've been great up to this point, and I know that cooperation will continue. And so at this point, yes, Mr. Kaufman.
I'd like to just make a couple comments. It was especially nice to hear from Joyce and Jeff. Joyce was on the planning commission in my first year, and I really enjoyed getting to know her. And I shared with her the frustration that we had with our first consultant, where we were not able to see any language during that whole period of time, which totally changed when our new consultant and Lauren came on. And I also wanted to thank Jeff for the interim leadership he provided as chair just before you became chair. Mike, he was really wonderful with us and gave us tremendous leadership. And I just wanted to thank him for that.
I would like to echo those thoughts. He's a great mentor to me. Anyone else? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.